Hello there, it's Gina Gardiner here and I'm your host on Passionate World Radio. Really pleased to be with you today. Today we're going to be exploring the theme of jealousy. Have you ever felt jealous? What are the things that you wish you could do that other people do that actually come easily? Jealousy is an interesting one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it's one of those things that we know is, or we see as negative.
Yep.
And yet there are times, we were talking about this before the programme, when people see that as the motivation to get on and do better in life.
Yeah.
And yet, I do get a sense that it's not necessarily the most positive way to approach things, that it has a sense of being negative and being destructive.
Yeah. But what prompted the conversation this morning was I'd seen a video recording of some kind of conference, and it was over in India. And this clearly very wise elder was sort of, holding forth, and he got a panel of young 20-somethings. One of the women put her hand up, and she basically said, is jealousy so bad as an emotion? Is it really that bad? Because all my life I've been jealous of all my friends and their achievements, and I've pushed myself harder and I've made myself do things. And I think that's why I've landed in this very top-notch, prestigious school. She was clearly very proud of her achievements, fair play. And actually, I also thought, gosh, fair play for actually being so bold in the statement.
Being honest, yeah.
I think jealousy is good.
Yes.
Because the other thing that occurred to me about this is that people don't talk about being jealous, because most people recognise innately that it's not a good thing to admit to being.
Yes.
Well, he had a really interesting answer to it, which was essentially that to push yourself to achieve things through jealousy was not the greatest. And he likened it to tying firecrackers to a donkey's tail. The donkey can, in its terror, run faster than it's ever done in its life before, and can beat other much more capable running animals. He said, the donkeys he has seen, apparently they do this in some kind of festival.
Awful, isn't it?
Which is rather awful to think of, but let's just be in denial and think it's a metaphor.
Yes, I think so.
So the donkey was capable of running at racehorse speed. So a good metaphor for what this lady had described herself as doing, pushing herself beyond her natural limits, perhaps, because of the firecrackers, jealousy that were attached to her. And he said, but the donkey's only doing it because he's terrified.
Yes. And
then he said to her, why would you do that to yourself? Why do you push yourself to achieve things out of an emotion that is terror versus one that is joy in the moment of achieving what you're capable of achieving in and of itself, separate to what anybody else has done?
I think, he had a really strong point. I'd like to perhaps explore my beliefs around how that comes to be.
Yeah.
Because I believe that when babies are born, they have an innate sense that they are enough.
Yes.
We've talked before about babies don't, their thinking, so far as we know, is not, does my bum look big and snappy? Has that baby got a posher pram or a posher car seat than me? They just get on living their life and enjoying their life.
Mm-hmm.
But what they do as they get older is they get conditioned to compare.
Yes.
And often to find themselves wanting. And I suspect the first experience that most people have around jealousy will be as very small children when somebody else has got a toy that they want.
Yes.
Or if they have siblings, that their siblings are getting more or different attention that they feel that they need, that they should have.
Yes.
And I think that one of the reasons why we don't talk about it is that most parents will tell children that being jealous is a bad thing.
Yes.
For me, I think, like all emotions, it's not the emotion in and of itself that's bad.
No.
It's about the behaviours and the thought processes that go along with it.
Yeah, because if you go back to what the seed of why you're jealous of that toy, it's all about status, and status in the sense of where you are within the the pack, and that's all linked to survival. Because the higher status you can achieve, the greater chance you have of survival. That's
Absolutely.
like a limbic brain lizard type approach to the fact of emotions. But you're right. Having sort of acknowledged that it's these emotions are given to us as tools. They're to tell us about something. They're to flag something to us. But it's then what the modern day response to it is that.
And I think for me, I mean, if you look back through literature, jealousy has been a theme. Think of Othello, for example.
Yes.
It's been a theme since time began. It's one of the primeval emotions that we feel. And like all emotions, I believe it's a call to action, to do something differently.
Yeah.
And, if you look at those very young children who, when they go and grab a toy off another toddler, I think how it's dealt with can often colour how people see themselves actually for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
If they feel that another child is getting all of the attention despite their best efforts, then they make up stories about why that is. And usually the story is that I'm not good enough.
Yes.
I don't have the same value as that other child. Now, I'm reminded of a family that I knew where one of the children had been very ill.
Yeah.
Now, quite rightly, the attention was on those children, on that child, because they were in hospital. There was a desperation around whether they would survive, and if they did, in what sort of state they would survive.
Yes.
But I was very mindful, this is a family when I was a head teacher, I was very mindful that in their need to support that child, absolutely rightly, the other children told themselves a story.
Yes.
And that was, I'm not as important as my sister.
Yes.
And one of the other children, I need to be ill in order to be loved and to be valued.
Yes.
That's the only way that I'll get my parents' time and attention. Now, I feel for the parents because what do you do in that situation?
Stuck between a rock and a hard place, aren't you? Yeah.
But you can see, and that's a very extreme case where the beliefs around their own self, their own inner value, was coloured by the fact that the parents' attention was very significantly on a child who is ill.
Yeah.
However, what I would say is I think there are parallels where parents' focus is on work or on studying or on themselves, and that children feel in direct competition.
Yeah.
And it's how do you help children to develop a good sense of self-worth when you are busy, when you have got other calls upon your time. And I think for me the starting point would be twofold. One is around the language that you use to your children and reassuring them that they are loved.
Yeah.
And explaining in the level of language that is pertinent to their age group. That, I have to go out to work in order for us to live.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean I love you any the less. But then when there is time, spending that time focusing on them without them being ill, without them being naughty, without there being a drama.
Yeah.
Because children very quickly learn if drama is the only way to get attention, then I'll create drama.
Yes.
And if one child in the family creates a bigger drama than the other, either through circumstance or deliberately, then other children will feel that their drama is less important, and therefore jealousy is one of those things that
Yes.
Yes. So I think jealousy is one of those things which is a natural emotion for people to feel. But I believe that the jealousy says much more about our own sense of self-worth than it does about this situation that's external, which is the one that's focused on.
Yes.
So if you put that into the context of keeping up with the Joneses.
Yeah, that classic thing. They've got a brand new car and they're having an extension.
And with children, their phone is the latest model, or they've got a bigger power than their Game Boy or whatever.
Yeah.
That, for me, is the follow-on. It starts within the nuclear family when we are small.
Yeah.
And you then get a situation where if I'm not keeping up with those people, then that means I'm lesser.
Yes.
So for me, the theme running throughout all of this is self-worth.
Can you remember the last time you felt jealous?
I think for me, the big lesson was when my brother was born.
Right.
I was 7.5, and I had been the apple of my dad's eye.
Mm-hmm.
My sister, a little bit of background, my mum had just had my sister when my dad was called up in the reservists to go to Korea.
Right.
And he was gone for 18 months.
Yeah, okay.
So he missed my sister's very young years. And I was born, I'm 3.5 years between my sister and I. And I think my dad invested an enormous amount of time in me because he felt that he'd missed my sister.
Yeah, which is an entirely natural thing to want to experience growing up, that you missed out on the first child and is so fleeting in the second. So
absolutely.
It's totally natural, isn't it?
I was a tomboy, even from tiny. How much of that is because I wanted to please my dad? Mm-hmm. I think there was an innate sense that both my parents would have liked a boy. Mm. And then they didn't think it was possible.
Right.
And David was a surprise.
Yeah.
And he arrived. He was a beautiful baby.
Yeah.
And I loved him.
Yeah.
But both parents were besotted.
Yeah.
He could do no wrong. He was a lovable rogue as a child. Great sense of humour, great prankster. And I can feel this duality of loving him and, wanting to mother him. Yeah. And at the same time, I think I'd have cheerfully wrung his neck because I felt on the outside.
Yeah.
When he was playing, my dad was playing with him, there wasn't a sense of, well, go and join them. It was, he loves him more than me.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that took quite a long time for me to resolve and recognise that actually love isn't finite, that parents can love their children and love them equally and yet differently, and that it was nothing about me being lesser, it was simply that there was a story I'd made up in my head that because there was a boy and because he was a beautiful, smiley, chuckly child, that I, in some way, had lost my position in the family.
Yep, the maths and the numbers added up and equaled jealousy. Yeah.
And I think that periodically, throughout my teenage years, when David got away with something, and particularly when that was pertinent to me, which he did on a fairly frequent basis, that I had to work hard at managing the fact that I was hurt.
Yes.
And part of that hurt was the jealousy, I think.
Yes. And it's not easy, is it? Because, I mean, us that like to think that we've done a lot of work on ourselves and that we're relatively enlightened and stuff, it doesn't mean to say that you are then, you get to a stage where you're immune from these low vibration energies.
I don't think anybody's immune, and there will be circumstances. And even if it's the fleeting, you see that somebody's been a winner on the lottery and you're struggling for money. I think for most people there's likely to be that thing, I wish that was me.
Yeah.
Now when does that I wish that was me, at what point does that translate from a wistfulness of I'm pleased for them but I wish it was me to I'm jealous?
Yeah. When does it start eating you up? Because when you talk about jealousy we think of the green monster.
Yeah.
I don't know why it's always green, mind you, but that would be interesting to explore.
Isn't it? Yeah.
But we think of an emotion that is churning and sort of violent in our innards, don't we? And
of course, for some people, jealousy is indeed that. And I think of clients that I've worked with who've had toxic relationships where they have been with a jealous partner. Yeah. And it is so destructive.
Yeah.
And in fact, the very thing that people fear when they are jealous, that the other person will go off or will have a relationship with somebody else, they make it more likely because in their jealousy and their distrust, they are creating a situation which is so destructive that the other person will believe that they can no longer tolerate it and that they've got to go in order to survive themselves.
Their love begins to feel like a cage, and what person would willingly place themselves within a cage?
Well, many people don't necessarily willingly, they unwittingly place themselves in a cage, and they stay there. I don't think it's that they're willing, I think it's that they feel that they are trapped and they can't, and that they're fearful of the consequences.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody would willingly be a victim to a significantly jealous person.
No.
Because it is so destructive, not only of them, but of the person who is actually jealous.
Yeah, and it's interesting. It's the law of abundance, isn't it? So a universal truth that by behaving in a jealous manner, by focusing on all the things that you're fearful of happening, you are focusing on those things, and therefore the universe provides those things.
You're focusing on lack, aren't you?
Yes.
If you're jealous of somebody else, that's at a number of levels, you're saying they're better than me.
Yeah.
I'm not worthy of that.
Yeah.
I can't achieve that. That's something that's not for me.
Yes.
And then I want it.
Yes.
Rather than, okay, they've got something that I value. Is that something that is right for me? And so in my own way, how would I achieve that, whatever it might be?
Yeah.
But I think particularly if we're talking about you're keeping up with the Joneses, I think that's predicated entirely on I only feel that I have equal value if I have equal stuff.
Yes.
And that's very much a sense around a sense of self-worth.
Yes, and of course, it's human nature, isn't it, to focus on those external aspects because we're very sight-driven creatures, aren't we? So we see things that other people have got.
Yes. Well, they're the outward manifestation, aren't they, of
Yes.
success. And certainly in the Western world, we hugely equate success with money and material goods.
And that goes back through time. I mean, there was a time when having a garden in a particular way was the success, and people were jealous of people's garden. It's just the external manifestation of somebody's creative skills because of their amount of money they have or whatever is what jealousy tends to get fixated on.
Yeah.
And that's because, of course, it's hard to judge people's internal.
No, it's an easy measurement, isn't it?
Yeah.
What's your bank balance? How big a car have you got?
Yeah.
But I think it's very interesting that more and more people are recognising that the material things are not how you value your life.
Imagine a scenario where somebody said, I'm not I was jealous of their educational achievements, they got an A and I only got a B, or I was jealous of their car. But imagine a scenario where somebody says, I was jealous of this person's ability to create peace within themselves and for themselves.
And I suspect there are people who everybody else has it all right.
Yeah.
Whether that's that they like themselves better.
Yeah.
If your self-worth is poor, then it's very easy to measure anything and find yourself wanting, because intrinsically you're looking for evidence that your belief about yourself, that you are not of any account, you're looking for evidence to back that up, and if you look for it, of course you're going to find it.
Yeah, you're the very worst of policemen because you've already decided what the outcome is.
Absolutely.
And so you're fitting the pieces
the policeman, you've been the jury, you've been the judge, and you've sentenced yourself all in one, haven't you?
Yes.
And so, recognising those feelings, I suspect that many of our listeners won't necessarily recognise the emotional feeling that they live with as jealousy.
Right.
I think a lot of people have a sense of dissatisfaction, a sense of not measuring up, not being enough.
Bitterness.
Could be
I don't
frustration.
Like that person because, and then justifying it because of other reasons. But
and there are a whole range of emotions that people will latch onto, and it may very well be those as well. But I suspect that at the heart of a lot of that will be the jealousy that I don't measure up in my eyes to that person. I don't measure up in terms of their level of success, their level of great relationship, or whatever.
Yeah.
And the dark thing is that for some people, no matter how much they had, it's never going to be enough.
No.
Because they'll move the goalposts.
Yeah. again, it's you're picking the evidence to suit the accused.
It becomes a self-fulfilling belief, doesn't it? If you don't believe that you are worthy, if you don't believe you're enough, then actually no amount of wealth, no amount of success, no amount of trappings is going to make the difference.
Yeah.
That has to be internal work. You have to look inside and recognise that whatever else other people are doing, it doesn't matter whether you've got, A stars in 973 subjects or you've got a C, you have a value.
Yes.
And you may not be academic, but you will have other things that actually, if you give yourself the gift of recognising your worth, then you are more likely to find those gifts than if you are constantly comparing yourself with other people and finding yourself wanting.
Here's a different perspective on jealousy then. Many times whenever I have, for instance, described a reaction that I have been on the end of from another person and I'm talking to another third party about it, I have often in my life been told by them, oh, that other person was probably jealous.
Yes.
And I think, jealous, right. It seems sometimes to be a very easy accusation that a bystander can point at and say, oh, that interaction that you had there was clearly motivated by jealousy. Because it was a negative interaction, a dissatisfying, they're clearly jealous. And I've always felt uncomfortable about that accusation. It's an easy one to go, yes, that's right, they were jealous, yes, that's right. But really...
I'd like to reframe that. Often when you get a reaction from people which is negative, I think I would not use the words they're jealous, much more that this is more about them than it is about you. That other person's not comfortable in who they are.
Yes.
So they're being critical or they're making light of your achievements.
Yes, or they just haven't thought.
They're unconscious. And often, we've talked about the conscious thinking, and so often people are so wrapped up in their own stuff, aren't they?
Yeah.
That they don't word it well. It's clumsy, but actually, it's not about you at all. Really,
no.
It's about how they see the world and how they see themselves.
So that was my innate instinct about it. But it is interesting, you see, how the word and the accusation jealousy can be so easily on somebody's lips when talking about somebody else.
Oh, but not about themselves.
But when we're challenged to say, "Have you felt jealous today?" we think, can't actually admit that deep dark feeling that I'm really envious and jealous of that person because I won't make myself look good by admitting that. So it's interesting, isn't it, how to accuse somebody else of that.
But then don't you think that's one of the reasons why so many people are very critical? It's easier to see the fault in others than admit it in yourself. Yes. Because once you've admitted it, then you are much more likely to feel you've got to do something about it.
I had one friend a long time ago, rather not recently, say to me that you criticise in others what you dislike in yourself, and she totally hamstrung me because from that moment onwards. Because I thought, well, I can't say anything negative about anyone now, can I? Because that's actually a message for myself, isn't it?
I think there is a lot of truth in that. I don't know that it's always the case. I think some people get into the habitual way of bitching because they feel deep down inadequate or bad about themselves, and externalising the criticism in that moment makes them feel better about themselves, or that's the hope. The trouble is that if it does at all, it's momentarily. There's nothing sustainable about that.
So I think the main learning for me is, listen to that young woman describe how jealousy had motivated her, and listen to all of these emotions is, just because it's on the slightly negative side of the emotional scale doesn't necessarily mean that it's any less valuable to listen to.
In fact, in many ways, it's more. I had a conversation with somebody last week about our shadow selves. That we are a mixture. We are good and we are, if you want to call it bad. Each of us has the capacity to be great things and to be terrible things. You've only got to look at war and what happens to ordinary people like you and me, who are all extraordinary, that that you'll bring the best out in people, and you will see that people putting their own lives at risk in order to save somebody else, and you will see atrocities.
Yeah.
And if people are of the belief that that is justifiable, then they will do things which perhaps in another period of their lives that they would see that as being unspeakable.
Yes.
I do believe that we all have the capacity. And it's interesting for me that, I thought about that conversation about, looking at our shadow side, looking at the side of us that we're not particularly proud of, and recognising that we've got a choice to acknowledge and to then do something about it, or to acknowledge and say, yeah, I know I have the capacity to do that, but that's not how I'm going to choose to act or speak or whatever.
Yeah.
But if you don't acknowledge it, and it all becomes very anodyne, doesn't it? It becomes Stepford Wives, that this is a perfect world where I don't have any negative thoughts. I don't have any urge to be lesser.
Yes.
But it's in that acknowledging that we all have a side that we would not wish other people to know about us.
Yes.
But the fact that we overcome that and that we don't behave in that way, for me, is the triumph.
Yes, and you can argue that in denying your shadow self, you make it far more dangerous.
Oh, you give it power, don't you? Because in the denial, you're giving it focus and energy.
Yeah, because you cannot, I mean, it's a universal law, you cannot suppress the balance that is required of all of us by the universe, I believe. So in trying to, state that you never have bad feelings, you never feel this, you never get angry, you never that, in trying to push those away, something will happen to you that is out of your control, that shaves off your joy, possibly, or makes your shadow self a far more powerful, much more malevolent creature because you're ignoring it.
It strikes me as we're talking, and I know the theme is jealousy, but as we talk about it, one of the things that I think is becoming clearer is you look at how many people are on antidepressants at the moment.
Yeah.
In the UK, 50% of all prescriptions now are antidepressants.
Yeah.
And I actually think that we, as a society, give ourselves very little permission to deal with negative emotion.
To be normal.
Yeah.
To be frail and human and vulnerable.
And to deal with life. And what we want is to anaesthetise ourselves from these things.
Yes.
And so we go and people are chemically anaesthetised, or they use drugs, or they use alcohol, or shopping, or sex, or hoarding, or food, in order to dull the pain, rather than acknowledging that that's how they feel, and allowing it to settle and to deal with it. Because these are our shadow side. These are part of who we are.
Yes.
And we don't need to give them dominance. I'm not suggesting that for a moment.
No.
But I think if you are so frightened of feeling a negative emotion, whether that's jealousy or any of the other negative emotions, you put yourself in a place where you're hamstrung.
Yes.
You dealing with life brings all sorts of challenges, doesn't it?
Yes.
And those challenges will elicit all sorts of emotions, some of them positive, and that's great, but just as many of them are likely to be what we deem as negative.
Yeah.
And I wonder whether, the language we use around these emotions, the emotions, I believe, in themselves are not negative.
Yeah.
It's how we manifest them. It's what we do with it that either has the potential to be negative, neutral, or positive.
So the next time that I feel a little bit of spike of envy or jealousy, I'm going to really pause and say to myself, well, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to consider that that's an indication that something is important to me.
Yeah.
That there's a kernel within that seed of jealousy that I need to just whittle down to and understand what's actually behind it. Maybe it is something that I want to achieve. Maybe it is something.
So it could be a huge motivator.
Yeah.
And that's a great thing.
Yeah.
But by doing it in the way you suggest,
then
the motivation is coming from a positive place rather than being the firecracker hanging on your
tail. Yes.
And I think, that people becoming more comfortable with feeling feelings, whatever they are, and being ready to acknowledge them.
Yeah.
And they're just feelings. It's the meaning we make of it,
Yes.
and the actions we take as a result of them that are important.
Yes.
The feelings are important. They are just an indication something needs to be dealt with.
Yes.
And I think, whatever else listeners take out this, I'd, examine your shadow self.
Mm.
If you feel you need some support in that, then let us know. Give us a ring.
Mm. Yep.
We'd love to know, what are the things that actually bring out those challenging emotions in you, and what do you do about it?
Mm.
Let us know through the website, genuinely-you.com, or you can contact us through the radio show or through Facebook. Genuinely You, come and join us on the Facebook group. We'd love to hear from you. So that really brings us to our show. Rachel, an international best-selling author of The Point of Me. You can find her book on Amazon and all places where all good books are sold. This is Gina Gardiner, international best-selling author. Go and find Thriving Not Surviving, the 5 Secret Pathways to Happiness, Success and Fulfillment. You can find that free on genuinely-you.com. The audio's coming out very soon, and the hardback and the paperback are available on Amazon or good bookshops. So thank you so much for joining us. Take care. This is Gina Gardiner saying cheerio, and I look forward to seeing you again on the next Passionate World Radio radio show. Cheerio. Take care. Bye now.